Hello, everybody. Josh Brown here, back for another great episode on Franchise Euphoria. Well, today's episode is brought to you by IndieFranchiseLaw.com, a leading resource in the franchise space to help you if you're considering buying a franchise, turning your business into a franchise, or growing your business through a licensing or franchise structure. So go on, check it out, IndieFranchiseLaw.com. I think you'll find a lot of valuable and free information as you continue to kind of weigh franchising and licensing and the growth of your business. Without further ado, I hope you enjoy today's episode. On today's episode of Franchise Euphoria, I've got Tim Conn, who is the co-founder and CEO of Image One Facility Solutions, which is a commercial cleaning franchise. Tim was a high schooler in the Chicago suburbs who wanted to buy a car. He began cleaning his parents' office building at 14 years of age. And by the time he graduated, he built his own small commercial cleaning company with 3 employees servicing several clients across the Chicagoland area. What really spurred his growth was joining a networking group. Even as a teenager, he learned that networking and building relationships was the key to business success. After working in Chicago suburbs for more than a decade, an area developer for a janitorial franchise reached out to him to partner with him. They partnered and along the way realized they could build a better cleaning franchise, one that didn't have area developers as middlemen, one that taught franchisees how to connect with clients to harness the sales process, and one that put an emphasis on customer care. Tim is adamant that Image One is a customer service company, not a cleaning company. And Tim's also got a book. He's got a book called No New Ideas, which is an Amazon bestseller. We had such an interesting conversation about the business that we never really got to the book. So I wanted to mention that here in the introduction. No New Ideas is a book all about different franchising opportunities with different businesses and how to turn them into franchises and what to think about and contemplate and so forth. So definitely check that book out on Amazon, No New Ideas. And without further ado, I hope you enjoy this interview with Tim as much as I did. Hello, Tim. Welcome to Franchise Euphoria. How you doing?
Doing great. How are you?
Great. Looking forward to learning all about Image One Facility Solutions, a commercial cleaning franchise. But before we dive into the actual franchise model, tell us about yourself a little bit.
Oh, there's a lot to tell. So,
Well, then take as much time as you need.
so I started my cleaning company when I was 14 years old, and then 20 years later, started franchising. Now we run Image One Facility Solutions as a franchise company based out of Chicago. So that's the super quick and short.
So 14, that was just a few years ago, huh?
35 years ago.
Was this just something you did as a kid, helping in neighbors' houses, or how did you start cleaning at 14?
So my parents owned a commercial office building. It was a multi-tenant building. It was around the age of, I was in high school, and I was like, I'm going to want to get a car soon. And my parents were always in business for themselves, and they were of the mindset, if you want something, you have to work for it. So I knew they weren't going to buy me a car. So I figured, all right, I had a year and a half to save enough money to buy a car. And I asked them, I said, hey, can I clean your office building? And they said, sure.
What did the tenants think when they saw this little 14-year-old kid walking around with, Lysol and cleaning solution?
Well, the reality is most of the work is done after hours, so many of them maybe didn't know. But I got to know a lot of them over the years, and most of them had a lot of respect for me because instead of most kids that age have no interest in working at all, much less owning their own business. And shortly after I turned 16, then I went out, started growing the business. I didn't want to sit back and just clean my parents' office building. I wanted to go out and really grow a business that would support a lifestyle for me at that point.
So what'd you do? I mean, at 16, at the ripe old age of 16, you now realized it's better to have other people do the cleaning instead of just you, right?
That's exactly it. Absolutely. So, I started, I went, walked door to door in strip shopping centers, strip malls, and did some window washing. And when I was doing that, there were 2 stores that were side by side. And the women that owned each of those stores, one of them was a shipping type store. It wasn't one of the major brands that's around now. She was an independent way before the franchises got into those stores. And the other one was a sign shop. And both of them, they said, Tim, if you really want to grow your business, you got to come back. One night this week, we're having a networking event. And I was like, what's a networking event? It didn't mean anything to me. I was just a kid. But they explained to me, and it's where business people get together and talk about leads for each other and help each other grow their business and help each other in sales. I thought, oh, that sounds great. So I went and made some good contacts there, and actually started cleaning for AT&T phone stores. That was a big deal.
Yeah, because there's a lot of them, right, at the time.
There were. Well, at the time, these weren't cell phone stores. These were landline stores, which they
Yeah.
they end up closing them all. It was a totally different model, but there were about 10 of them in Chicago, and I think over a period of time, we were doing 7 or 8 of the 10 stores in Chicago. They started to fall like dominoes. When the word got around, hey, there's this young kid that does a great job, reasonable pricing. We started picking them all up, and that was great. And then again, just continued to grow the business through high school, through college, and decided after college there was no reason to do anything else. I had a good, thriving business going. Then the whole concept of franchising came up.
How'd that come up?
So I got a letter in the mail from someone that was buying a master franchise and was looking for someone to partner in the Chicago market. And I didn't know a lot about franchising. I knew they were out there, but I didn't understand it really. So I went and I met with him. And we did a 10-year agreement as a master franchise, selling unit franchises in Chicago. And at the end of those 10 years, we'd grown up a pretty good size business in the Chicago market. And there were things, though, that I thought, we can do things just a little bit differently and a little bit better. And so when that franchise agreement with the national company expired, that's when Image One was born. We started to franchise in the janitorial industry a little bit differently than what most of the competitors do in our industry.
So talk about that. I mean, talk about the business as it was and then the business as you sort of envisioned it and the differentiators.
Sure. So all the major players in our industry are set up the same way. They all sell master franchises into a market, and then those masters sell units. So it's kind of a two-tier franchise system. So the master franchise is a franchisee of the main franchisor, but they're the franchisor to sell a unit in that market.
And for those who don't understand that, it's a sub-franchisor system, right? And so basically you have the franchisor company, and then they typically bring in a group or some sort of buying entity that buys the rights to a whole area. And then they go and find franchisees for that area. And they sign contracts with them and so forth. And essentially there's money that flows, to the sub-franchisor and then up to the franchisor company, right?
Correct. That's exactly the way it works. So that revenue is then kind of split from the master franchise up to the franchisor. That system, to me, it doesn't work well because all the janitorial franchises that are out there, they all operate the same way. Where that master franchise will get the clients and really manage the business, manage the clients on behalf of the unit franchise owner, and the unit franchisee typically doesn't do much sales. They don't really have any control over pricing or any of that. And I saw that as a problem. And that was why we said, we're going to do something completely different. And so we talked with our franchise attorney and came up with a completely different method of operating where it really works more like a traditional franchise. Because any other franchise that you buy, typically you're the one that's in charge of generating revenue and growing that business.
Sure.
And with most of the janitorial franchises, that's not the case. And so we wanted to do that and go more the traditional route in franchising. So we train all of our franchise owners in sales. We train them all in operations. We developed a whole suite of software that the franchise owners are able to run on their iPad to be able to do bidding and estimating and customer management and manage their crews and communication. We had it all built into one platform. So that there would be something that would really be significant that would set us apart from all the other players.
Well, that's really astute of you because you're exactly right. I mean, most of the commercial janitorial franchises do operate under a sub-franchisor type model. And what it really sounds like is you realize that if you go under a more traditional model and you provide more support, that you have a chance to more directly impact and have happy franchisees and grow from that perspective. I mean, that's what it really sounds like because a lot of your support that you're talking about with the proprietary software and the training and all that, I mean, that's very different. My understanding, and I have some knowledge working with some different commercial janitorial businesses, is that a lot of them that they provide, equipment and they provide some know-how and they provide some other things. But at the end of the day, what you're talking about is really helping them with the bedrock principles of what it takes to grow the underlying franchise business.
Exactly. And that's what it's all about. So, we sit down with our franchise owners and ask them, where is it that they want to go, what is it they want to accomplish, how big do they want to grow their business, and then we work with them to help them get to that level, whatever that might be.
Did you start by filling out or trying to fill out the Chicago market or the Illinois market?
Yeah, so the Chicago market is where we got our start with the other company. So we really had a good stronghold in the Chicago market. We decided after we really had it well developed, then we would start expanding out. So we really just started our expansion to go nationwide. It's an exciting time for us. We've got franchisees in Southwest Florida, in Orlando, Florida, in Cincinnati, in Detroit, Denver, and Dallas. There's not a lot that are out there across the country yet. We're really just starting to get into that and really grow that model.
Who are you looking for? I mean, who's an ideal franchisee? What kind of characteristics do they bring to the table?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's such a diverse demographic that we have right now. But the one thing that I can say that's most important is someone that has a strong customer service background or a strong sales background, because those are the two things that you really need. So you have to have at least one or the other, and then you can hire to your weakness to get the other one. And the reason I say customer service, yeah, we're in the cleaning business, but it's really the customer service business, because it's not like there's never going to be a problem with the cleaning. There is. It's just that's just the nature of the business. Garbage can is going to get missed, or something crazy might happen and something doesn't get done properly. But it's all about customer service and managing those issues, having good communication with your clients. That's really what sets apart a really good, solid franchisee. Honestly, I think in any service industry, not just in cleaning.
But part of it is understanding, what is it that the franchisees are gonna get out of it? I mean, in your type of model, it's all commercial, right? There's no residential component to it.
Yeah, we don't do any residential.
So it's all commercial.
Yes.
Is the idea that a franchisee is gonna come in and build out a team to then go and do the cleaning? I mean, is this something where, the franchisee is ideally gonna build out a team, or just does it just depend on the type of franchisee who you're bringing in?
It depends on the franchisee. We've got our largest franchise owner in 2019. He broke the $1 million mark. That's a really good business, and
Yeah.
obviously he's got a lot of people that are out there cleaning at night. I don't think he does any cleaning anymore, or if he does, it's rare. But he focuses on sales and operations and managing his client base. But then there's other franchise owners that are small and they do the cleaning themselves because that's all they're looking for. They don't want to have a whole bunch of employees. They just wanted to be in business for themselves, and they run a business where it generates a very nice income for them. But they're going out in the evenings and they're taking care of the cleaning. And if that's what they want, we won't tell them not to do that. But what we're really looking for is the guys that want to grow it to a larger business. Like the one that I mentioned, where it's truly a substantial business where they've got a lot of employees, and they're managing the business, not working in the business, because we're not looking for people that want to do the cleaning themselves necessarily. We're looking for people that want to run a business that happens to be cleaning.
Yeah, and I mean, it's interesting, so many people have different interpretations and thoughts about franchising, but as you just said, and I think as you and I both know, I mean, the people who are ultimately going to be happiest are the people who can come in there, and sure, they're going to have to start out doing everything. But once they grow and bring other people on, that's the real way for them to capitalize on the investment.
Absolutely, and they have to have an exit strategy. And I think a lot of franchise owners in any of the industries that are franchised often don't think about that. They're just looking at, hey, I've got this business, and if they're directly involved doing the day-to-day cleaning, then they really don't have an asset that's marketable that they can sell when they want to exit. Whereas if they grow a nice business and they're just running it, now they've got a marketable asset that they can turn around and sell, take their profits, and either go in and start another new business, or go and retire and find some place where it's warm year round, that they want to go and lay on the beach.
So I want to talk a minute or two on COVID, which, typically when I'm talking with people now on COVID, it's sort of, how have you adapted to all the changes that have negatively impact a business? Now, in your case, it sort of strikes me that, in the cleaning business for commercial buildings, I imagine the business has picked up. I don't know. I mean, I guess I'd ask you, how's that been for you? I mean,
Yeah, so that's. It's a great question, and I feel bad sometimes talking about it, telling people that yeah, our franchise owners are doing really well in this time, because a lot of them are. Not all of them. Some that had their focus, where their primary focus of the clients that they serviced were in hospitality. If they're doing restaurants or bars, movie theaters, bowling alleys, those things closed, and a lot of places they haven't reopened. Those franchise owners are struggling. But the franchise owners who were cleaning essential businesses, those businesses never closed. So if they were cleaning doctors' offices and things like that that still needed to be cleaned, they still needed to be cleaned. Or manufacturing locations, those still needed to be cleaned. And one of the things that we did very early on in COVID, when we first started hearing about it, I immediately ordered some electrostatic sprayers, which have been around for years and years and years, but we never had a need for them. And when I saw this all coming, I was like, this might be the right time to get this equipment. And I ordered a few for a few of our larger franchise owners, got them in their hands. And when I went back 2 weeks to order more, they were on back order 12 to 16 weeks. So I was glad that I had the foresight to order them ahead of time, because that was something that our franchise owners were able to pivot and do a lot of electrostatic spraying that was either COVID preventative or post COVID exposure. And they're still doing that. Several of them across the country are doing a lot of preventative sprays, which helps other businesses to be able to reopen or stay open, and help their clientele and their staff feel more secure and more safe in the office or in the restaurant or whatever it is that they're walking into.
So much of being a franchisor is being part of that business and helping those franchisees along the way, being, in a leadership position to help, drive the franchise business where it's going, the overall business where it's going. I'm curious, with some of the people who aren't doing as well in your model, what are some of the things that you've looked to do? What are some of the creative ways that you've looked to address COVID as it continues on now, especially in Illinois through the winter months?
Yeah, and at this time of year, we're getting into cold and flu season. And so I think everybody's going to be concerned the minute they have a sniffle or a tickle in their throat, or if they have a slight fever, they're going to think they have COVID. So it's really going to be a difficult situation. Again, I think that's why that preventative spraying is huge, and it's so important to get that done. So the businesses are knowing that they're doing everything that they can to protect their clients and protect their staff. But our franchise owners that are still struggling, like the ones that clean movie theaters still haven't reopened. And so that's a challenge for them. So, we told them, look, you need to redirect your focus. Even though you were very successful cleaning movie theaters, you need to look at general offices. You need to look at car dealers. You need to look at common areas of apartment complexes, condominium associations, things like that. So that's what they've done. They've kind of just adjusted their business into facilities that are more essential, that are going to be open regardless of what's happening. And that's been well received, and they've had success in kind of making that transition.
You know, so many businesses think about franchising, and you've gone through it now, and you've gone through it in a pretty methodical way, it sounds like. I mean, you've worked in the business a long time, and then you figured out a model, differentiators. You did all the things that you would hope people would do before turning into a franchise. I'm just curious, what would be your recommendation or your thoughts for folks who are thinking about franchising their business? Obviously, it's particular to what the business is, but just in general, just in terms of the
Right.
model of going to that model. I always love to hear from people who have actually done it, because you're in a unique position to comment on it.
Well, it's funny that you ask, because on Wednesday I've got a phone call with a friend who's in the cleaning industry, and he said, he goes, I was thinking about franchising, and I want to know more about it. So so this is a good trial run for that conversation with him. And the one thing that I think most people don't realize is the minute you franchise your business, you're not in your business anymore. So if you have a pizza place and it's very successful and you franchise it, you're not a pizza business anymore. Now you're a franchise business.
Now explain that, because that is so important. When I talk to my clients, I say the same exact thing, and a lot of them are like, "I don't know what you mean by that," until they actually start doing it, and they're like, 6 months, a year and a half in, they're like, "Now I realize." So what you're saying, I think what you're saying is basically, instead of now having to worry about your one location, you have to worry about an overall system, an overall brand, expansion. I mean, all those things, right?
Correct. And it's you have to focus now on supporting your franchisees so that they can be successful in the business that you were successful in. And having the industry experience is huge. That's you can't just start into a franchise without the industry experience and know exactly what you're doing. So you have to come from having a single location that you did very well, or expanding it to 3 or 4 or 5, and then deciding to franchise. But once you do that, now your whole business is a support structure for those franchises that you sell, because that's what they're buying into, a system. They're buying into your brand. They're buying into all the things, all the mistakes that you've made, learning so that they don't have to make those mistakes. And so that's why I say it's a completely different business that you're in, and I think that's a hard adjustment for a lot of people, because they don't realize they're not making a pizza anymore. They're not cleaning offices anymore. Now they're a franchise system, and they need to support their franchise owners, and it's a completely different mindset.
And sort of as a final question on this, when somebody's thinking about franchising and they're learning about it, oftentimes they learn about it because customers come in and say, "Hey, do you have any other locations? You ever thought about franchising?" And the light bulb goes off in, their head. "Oh, maybe I should think about that." But a question and something that runs, I think, through a lot of people's mind is, when's a good time for a business to then follow through and actually franchise? I mean, at what point in time do you give it serious thought?
So there's a saying, and I don't know where it came from, that the best time to plant an oak tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. So, if you want the shade from the oak tree, you needed to do it 20 years ago. And I think the same holds true in business. The best time to do anything was a long time ago, because now you have what you want today. But if you start it today, it's going to take 10, 15, 20 years to build the successful model that you want. Unless it's something that's just so unique that everybody wants it, and it's an overnight success. And there are some of those that are out there. But in most cases, yeah, you have to have a good, stable business that you're already running, that is secure, that you've got the wherewithal to keep that running and operating while you're making the investment, because it can be a large investment between getting your FDD written and all the operations manuals and all those things done. It can be very expensive. So you have to be able to be in a financial position that you can do all that at the same time, not letting your original business suffer and creating this new business. So there's a lot of challenges to it. But if someone is really seriously contemplating it, I think it's great. They just need to know, like you said earlier, what differentiates you. What is it that's going to make you different? If we're talking about cleaning, or we're talking about pizza, or we're talking about a sandwich shop, there's so many of all those things that are out there. What's going to make yours so much different that someone's going to want to buy a franchise for it, or that those franchisees are going to be able to bring customers in to purchase that product or that service?
Yeah, no, I agree, and I hit on this a lot on this podcast, and then in general, and that is, first question is it a franchisable concept, right? If it's in some sort of unique industry. The next one is, if they come with a restaurant, they come with a cleaning service, whatever. Yes, it's franchisable, but the question is, what is the ongoing long term value that you can provide to your franchisees? Because it's sort of a given, if you're selling a model to somebody, there's inherent value there at the start. They're going to learn how to run the business, they're going to learn those things, but at a certain point they're going to learn how to do it. And so the question is, what's the long-term value that you as a franchisor are providing 2, 3, 4, 10 years down the road, so that they don't think to themselves, why am I continuing to pay this royalty and not getting anything new for it? And
Right.
that to me establishes the differentiator. That to me establishes what makes it unique and what makes it ultimately valuable. And I'm just amazed, Tim, at the number of businesses that don't think that far out. And what happens is they grow because maybe they have a good sales team. Maybe they've hired on a good sales team to bring on franchisees. And then 2 to 3 years down the road, the franchisees are going, okay, well, now I know how to do this business. What else are you providing to me? So I,
Right.
I think it's definitely something that franchisors need to think about. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing a little bit about Image One Facility Solutions. If anybody wants to learn more about Image One, you can go to imageonefranchise.com. That's Image One, and it's spelled out one. It's not the number. So it's imageonefranchise.com. Thanks so much, Tim, and I wish you continued success. It sounds like you're on a good path and on a good trajectory. And thanks for coming on and sharing your thoughts for a few minutes.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. It was great to be here.
Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Franchise Euphoria. If you enjoyed this episode or have enjoyed the podcast in general, I would really appreciate it if you could go to iTunes and leave me a rating and review. It really helps to get this podcast out to more and more people. So the easy way to do it is go to iTunes and in the search box, put in Franchise Euphoria. You will then see my cover art and you click on my smiling face that says Franchise Euphoria and then click on the link that says ratings and reviews. It's that simple, but boy, oh boy, does it mean the world to me when people leave ratings and reviews. And like I said, it really helps get the show out there. Once again, would love it if you would go to iTunes and leave a rating and review if you enjoyed this episode or other episodes of the show. And until the next time, happy franchising.